So, it gives me great joy then to invite our UNESCO representative today, and Mr. Tabue Nguma. And he's been at UNESCO for quite some time, so he comes with a long experience there since 2010. He's currently the head of the Social and Human Sciences sector at the regional office in Dakar in Senegal. He first coordinated the elaboration of 3 volumes of the general history of Africa, so playing a very critical role there, dealing mainly with the concept of global Africa. And he's in charge of the slave route resistance, liberty and heritage, focusing on the action, on the triptych slaveries, racism, social injustices and inequalities. He holds degrees from the University of Paris and the School for Advanced Studies in the Social Sciences in France, with a focus on social anthropology, history, philosophy, and political science. In his current position, he's in charge of programs on African humanities, youth and sport, gender equality, general history of Africa, and many others. So we're really delighted to have you here today, and I'd like to invite you to come and say a few words to get us going. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, dear Professor Klopper, I would like to thank the University of Stellenbosch for this wonderful initiative to create the first UNESCO chair on intercultural competencies. I would like also to extend this thanks especially to the chair and the co-chair, Darla and Sarah, for their commitment to make this important achievement and the triumph over the administration of both the university and UNESCO. And we all know how epic administrative battle can be. As we don't have a lot of time, I'm not ready to jump into the definition of intercultural dialogue. That is, as you know, at the core of UNESCO mandate. But I would like to try to briefly propose to you a scenario of its evolution inside of UNESCO vision, but also within the burning intellectual debate to kind of put the chair into perspective. As we all know, the current society are the result of intercultural communication. They're indeed being shaped by the dynamic of cultural diversity, which through human history have been a driving force of transformation. If I may, I would like to start my proposed script from the 90s. Around the concept of the end of history of Fukuyama, a conceptual network like World Village, Global, that is the kind of combination of global and local, was formed, operating a kind of reduction of diversity and promoting a real but largely overvalued acceleration of the world standardization process. These approaches that convey with the triumph spread of neoliberalism in the aftermath of the fall of the Berlin Wall predicted an economically and de facto culturally unified world. So from 2000, with the appearance of new ideological borders and conflict of international and regional dimension, openly taking the roots in the culture, this set of ideas seems totally biased and unsuitable for understanding the new international dynamic. Moreover, post-colonial migration and long-term settlement of migrants from the south in the country of the north also disrupt deeply the demography of the old democracy of the North and question the culturally monolithic representation of the citizen that they have produced. Thus, although individual and community have been more connected than today, conflict arising from cultural misunderstanding persist and multiply not only between society but also within them. Throughout the world, new populist discourse are propagating the idea that diversity and unity are irreconcilable, fueling discourses of hatred, exclusion, and fueling violence, which in the long term risk threatening the social fabric. These discourses often attack the multicultural model to promote assimilationalism. Thus, for Charles Taylor, one of the main theorists of multiculturalism, Charles Taylor says, we are very far from this ultimate horizon from the top of which the relative value of different culture could be evident. This ultimate horizon could be an intercultural citizenship from which it will be possible to look at culture with equal dignity. As I was saying earlier, the issue of intercultural dialogue and the peaceful coexistence of culture is central to UNESCO mandate. This is why it has endeavored to promote the universal value of elements of the world cultural heritage. The history of humanity and the regional history reveal also this in that respect, that our culture and our heritage are the fruit of long history of reciprocal influences between various cultures. In the 19th, the use of the concept of roots, road, made it possible to better underline the interactional dynamic between culture with two emblematic programs which remain today at the heart of the action of the organization. The first one is the Silk Road Project, which illustrated in the structuring of trade over a very long distance, people exchange, interact, and influence one another. The other one is I was coordinating this project, is the Slavery Project, which demonstrates all the complexity of intercultural connection that operate even in the phenomena of extreme violence to which Africa has been subjected, Atlantic slavery, but also trans-Saharan slavery. So it was only natural that when the United Nations declared 2030-2022 as the International Decade for the Rapprochement of Culture, that UNESCO has been designated as the lead agency to drive this ambitious agenda. The decade was also to mark a turning point in the way of doing things. It was no longer just a question of putting cultural interaction into perspective of a long period of time and making a theoretical discussion of the development of a political model, but we have to begin to understand it at the level of the actors, their practice, and to better equip them in order to give them greater competencies. Mrs. Azoulay, the Director General of UNESCO, summed this new paradigm perfectly as follows. As intercultural dialogue is above all dialogue between people, as intercultural dialogue is above all a dialogue between people, its major challenge is to change mentalities in order to encourage respect and openness and to equip men and women with essential skills of dialogue. These skills must also be part of a lifelong learning process and be based on experience and reflection by calling on emotional and cognitive faculties. This is the raison d'etre of initiative aimed at equipping individuals with the necessary skills to deal with cultural openness through personal encounters and experience, and those participated in intercultural dialogue. From this new perspective, UNESCO, in partnership with the Institute of Economic and Peace, has created the initiative for enabling intercultural dialogue to overcome this knowledge gap and support more effectively dialogue. Through the initiative, UNESCO has produced the conceptual and technical architecture for enabling intercultural dialogue, the UNESCO framework for enabling intercultural dialogue, and the global analytical report, We Need to Talk. UNESCO has also developed a reference manual, Story Circle, providing a reflexive methodology for developing intercultural competencies in variety of contexts, both formal and informal, published in 2019. Piloted in 5 different countries, Thailand, Costa Rica, Zimbabwe, Australia, and Tunisia, the methodology has proven to be effective on a variety of different contexts. And for those of you who had the chance to experiment it yesterday with Dala, you see how effective this methodology is. So the creation of this share resonates not only with the debate within UNESCO and UN, but it's also a strong contribution to the cultural and intellectual current debate. Intercultural skills are not only, in my opinion, I apologize for this use, it's also, in my opinion, a decolonial skill. The experience of cultural humanity that I encounter from, for example, in the contact of the Congolese musician Relema, who was passionate about Bulgarian polyphony and the potential equal encounter with the rhythm of Central Africa, it was intercultural competencies in action, and let's say in music. Maybe more generally, the effort of getting out of the periphery in which the West lock up other culture has also to do with a decolonial experience in the sense that Walter Mignolo proposed. That is to say, a way out of the colonial temporality. It's also intercultural competencies process. Breaking with a certain tradition of a situated universal that would have been born in Europe in the 18th century to understand the universal from the experience of each entity that constructs the experience of the world, it's also intercultural competencies in process. To summarize the post-colonial movement with the paradigmatic invitation of Omi Baba, remake Europe a periphery in the same way as other social cultural spaces, it's definitively intercultural competencies in process. For the Senegalese philosopher Souleymane Bachir Diagne, the language of the universal is translation. Translation being, as Umberto Eco was saying, the language of the language. But culture is obviously not only just language. You can understand the language, but yet completely miss the culture on which it's based. This is what we learn from the colonial narrative produced by colonial administrators who, although sometimes speaking indigenous language, were unable to see in the culture they were encountering anything other than their own superiority. Intercultural skills are holistic attributes to go beyond linguistic, to develop cognitive and embodied ability to allow us to understand where our interlocutor is speaking from. I will not be too long because I love this saying, this African saying, when you are giving a speech, have also mercy for those who are listening. So but I wanted to give you a kind of perspective of, to try really to understand, this share is not coming from nowhere. It's like an important internal discussion within UNESCO, but when you're also trying to, to put the chair in a global map, it resonates a lot with a very important discussion that we are having, of course, in this continent, but also in South America, also in Asia. So we are really happy that, that we are having this new fantastic share, and we cannot wait to see the result of the first work and your first commitment. Thank you very much.